through PPG, Andrea, is where I first met Lorna Hill, and I appreciate that you started with a note about Lorna, Brandon, and maybe you could offer reflection on how she embodied and expressed the beloved community.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I grew up under Lorna Hill, not even knowing how much of an impact she had or was to the community at the time. I was a high school kid who just came in and just followed her, and over time, you got to really experience her power. The message, the reason why she created Ujima was for us to be, not only tell our stories, but tell relevant stories that the community can then also go enjoy, but then grow from. And then from there, I mean, Lorna was an activist. She was a speaker. She spoke out often against the city, which did not always make her a favorite person, but often, just like Dr. King, you look back and you're like, everything she said was correct, accurate, and we need to make action. We need to take action. So like being able to be there for that while Lorna made that kind of impact was huge for me.
And thank you, Brandon. And Andrea, through the Partnership for the Public Good, you saw how Lorna embodied the beloved community beyond the theater, beyond the programs, and took it to, now let's change policy, right?
Absolutely, and I had the same thought when you were speaking, Brandon, and mentioned Lorna. It's hard to think of someone who embodied the beloved community more, and also just love as power. Like when you think of love, sometimes we think of that as gentleness, you know, friends and family together, but she had love as power, and as you said, if she loved you, she would correct you all the more, you know, and it was like, she's not going to let you get off course, let you say something you shouldn't, because she loves you. And I think in the same way, you know, before coming here, I was thinking, over the years, I think about love as a public good, right? We're Partnership for the Public Good. Love is a public good. And that sounds super peace and love to say, whatever. But if you think about love as a legitimate policy value, a way to measure our policies, a way to draft them, you can really get into that space. And I was looking back at some MLK things, of course, for tonight, and in the really powerful piece that you mentioned, Seamus, where do we go from here, chaos or community? He actually wrote, power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. And we can kind of run down the items on our community agenda, the items that our broad partnership of 355 organizations say, this is where our city, county, and state are falling short, or even worse, are actually harming us. And those could all be looked at in terms of, do we love the folks who are our neighbors, the folks who are our constituents if we're decision makers, or do we kind of look at them with disdain? And I can go on about that, or I can pass it to my friend right here.
And before we do that, really quickly, sorry, India, quickly, also, like the idea of collective work and responsibility is that we're not on an island in this. We shouldn't be, it's not a thing where you're trying to do it alone, but we have to come together as a community to make this change. And that's the important thing, is like collaboration's community, so that we all build together, because that's the most important part of it.
And I can remember really vividly, you were probably there. We were on this one retreat with a bunch of Buffalo organizations working around climate justice issues, and as often happens in social movement spaces, right, there was some flare-up, and this was a really racially diverse coalition, and Lorna stood up in that session and kind of shouted out, like, you need to sit down. I am your mother. You are my son, right, to someone in that group, and then started doing that around the room, like, you are my sister, you are my daughter, I am your mother. And this is like a professional gathering, again, of age, race, diverse people, but for her, like that radical value of connection and love was just part of how she would communicate. And I think we kind of don't do that enough. I don't know, maybe you want to, I'm passing it straight to India, Seamus.
I don't even know what I can say about Lorna. Lorna was the first person that ever told me that, like, she saw potential in me for leadership and that I should pursue whatever my dreams were and that my thoughts were not radical. It was actually very normal. So that will always mean so much to me. But I think that also, like, it was the first time I had ever been in a place, I was there, right? Where, like, someone just brought, like, that maternal instinct into the space and was like, hold up. First of all, like, you don't talk to me like that, right? And I think that sort of, like, set the stage for me to be the type of leader that I am, where I can say to anybody, you can't speak to me that way. You can't say that about me. You can't say that around me. You can't say that about my people. And I think that having that type of example of what feminine leadership can look like, right, without being worried about being typecast as the angry black woman. It's like, yeah, in some senses I'm mad as hell, but it doesn't make me unreasonable. What I'm saying is perfectly reasonable in this setting because you're disrespecting, you're discounting, you're diminishing my leadership. So, like, that was what I learned, and I still carry with me about the great Lorna C. Hill.
I love that. I don't know that we were expecting to talk all about Lorna, but I'm happy to have this be all about Lorna. And, you know, maybe in closing, there's a line from a simple saying from a book you gave me, India, by Bell Hooks. Love is a verb. And that's what the beloved community is. I want to thank Brandon Williamson, Andrea Súilleabháin, India Walton for being here and being up here again. Please visit the Partnership for the Public Good table. Please support Ujima Theatre, Puring Poetry. And remember that love is everywhere. Is that right, Reconnected Band?